What's up, you bunch of Girl Scouts? Today we're here with the Starving Podcast, and I'd like to introduce some of our sponsors. We have GenoPalette. This is a new DNA company that analyzes your nutrition. It tells you some of your food sensitivities and some foods that you may be better and predisposed to eating based on your different genes. You can get $20 off using code CBG. So head over to their website or find the link in the show notes. X-Endurance, all third-party tested supplements. A lot of our athletes take these supplements, and it takes the guesswork out of wondering if there's anything illegal in what you're taking. So you might want to check them out. They have some great things: protein powder, creatine, immune support, you name it, they have it. Our other sponsor is PerformaSleep. Now, PerformaSleep sells mattresses. Mattresses from California King all the way down to the singles for you lonely mother effers out there. So, get your PerformaSleep bed and get $75 off using code CBG. You can find the link in the show notes. This bed specifically has copper infused in it, which allows a good cooling mechanism and is antimicrobial. So, head over to PerformaSleep, get your bed, and get your sleep. Now, today we're talking about COVID-19. And we have an expert on that Jordan's going to tell us all about. It's going to be awesome. We're going to go into a lot of different topics and hear from people that actually know what they're talking about, as opposed to apparently everyone on Facebook today all of a sudden became smart. So you might want to pay attention. Enjoy.
It's science.
Hey now. How's everybody doing out there?
Hey, what's up?
Hi. All right, guys. We're gonna bring you our take on the World Health Organization declared pandemic of COVID-19. So obviously, I'm your co-hostess with the mostest, Jordan. We got Justin in the background, but we got a nice expert on our expert panel today, Dr. Zrinka Orešković. Zrinka, please say hi, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Zrinka. I'm an immunologist, so I don't know, is there anything else you want me to say right now?
No, I think that's it. Zrinka and I
We just want to hear your accent. The audience just wants to hear your accent.
Yeah.
Okay, why? I don't know why the accent is so
Because it's different. It's different from ours. We're
that's
Americans.
True. Yeah, I know. I'm Croatian, but I've been living in Czech Republic for about 10 years now. So I'm, kind of naturalized in here, unfortunately. But I'm Croatian, and yes, that's pretty much about where my accent is coming from.
Nice. Taking them shots. All right, so I think before we get into all the hype and the hoopla and the numbers, I think I'm gonna be your numbers guy today. Justin, you just want to give a little bit of background on, say, I think you and Zrinka could take this, like what a virus is as opposed to, say, a bacteria or, I don't know, a tree or something like that. What makes a virus kind of a little bit scarier than everything else at this point?
Yeah, the viruses specifically are dangerous because they have, they adapt over time, and they have the ability to replicate, based off of, how dangerous the virus is, or how infectious the virus is. This is really the big issue, and this is why people are or have predicted something like this from happening. Over the past, 5 years, like what's going to kill us is a virus. This small thing that no one can see. It's not going to be war. It's not going to be these other things, and it's because of the infectious nature of them, their ability to replicate, and the time it takes to develop vaccinations and other things to eradicate or at least diminish the number of cases.
Yeah, guys, the thing everybody's been doing well with the news and the social media posting about the difference between a virus and a bacterium is, but let's just kind of get it out of the way now that, at least the way I was informed, and this definition could have changed. Zrinka could probably give a better definition or working knowledge of this, but like virus isn't alive. It's just a few strands of either RNA or DNA kind of put in a nice little fat capsule, and it just kind of floats around in the environment. And so everybody knows I study algae. I study diatoms. We have viruses that are targeted towards diatoms that just kind of screw around in the water. They live in the soil. They screw around in the air, anywhere where sort of DNA and RNA could be suspended. So it's not like this is something that is completely new. This idea of viruses, it's quite common. There's viruses for everything. So.
Well, viruses are interesting because they're kind of a borderline between living and non-living world, let's call it that way. They're basically particles. Outside of the host, they are not alive in terms of what we know as living organism, unlikely the bacteria, because bacteria are able to sustain themselves and actually survive even without a host, which the virus cannot do. So this is what kind of makes them different. And also the genome is slightly different than bacterial, and they need a host. They do use, especially RNA viruses. They use our human replication mechanisms to replicate themselves, and this is how they can mutate to a very high rate.
That's pretty scary and crazy all at the same time. I think you sound like one of those pandemic movies, Zrinka. Thanks.
Well, yeah, I know. Well, you should have seen my department in the past 2 months.
Yeah. So let's just dive right into it. So we've already talked about what a virus is for the most part, and let's get into what COVID-19 is specifically, and what are the real threats that we've seen the U.S. facing, but also the European Union, and as it spreads globally, what may be some of the other threats as it exploits like pretty crazy healthcare systems. So anybody want to chime in on this one first?
Yeah, I mean, COVID-19 is a novel coronavirus, and it's a positive sense single-stranded RNA virus, and it's contagious in humans. There's still debate amongst whether the virus is contagious airborne droplet, or strictly airborne. So this is why they have the different masks out there, and there's different PPE. In the United States, at least, if you talk to a healthcare worker, they will describe the virus as airborne, and it's because there are people that are getting infected in rooms that aren't, flow positive. And they're also wearing N95 masks, which protect, or they're looking for N95 masks, which protect for airborne, as opposed to droplet, whereas a regular surgical mask can, protect from droplet. Well, for the most part, So this is why these N95 masks are short, but the CDC and everyone else seems to claim that the virus is droplet. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there, and it could be to not scare on our end of the world, the American people. But regardless, this is really what the sort of the hint at the very out surface of the mechanism of this virus. The disease was originally identified in 2019 in Wuhan, China. Some symptoms, although there are varying symptoms amongst, different people, seem to be fever, cough, shortness of breath, diarrhea, sore throat, abdominal pain. People tend to also lose their smell and taste. And, it's an acute respiratory infection, and really the complications seem to be not only in immunocompromised people, but the potential for based on the acute respiratory infection, for people to develop, acute respiratory distress syndrome and pneumonia and things related to, lower lobe, diseases in the lungs. So this is my take on what COVID-19 is, and some of the potential dangers.
Yeah, I think the problem with a lot of these things is this thing is still pretty new. So the CDC and the World Health Organization, it calls for the maximum what's it called, barrier protection. Not exactly those full gown hazmat suits, because we don't have confirmed evidence that this is 100% airborne. Say like Ebola is more fluid contact, and hantavirus is through suspended particles. But in giving it the benefit of the doubt, they assume full protection. So that's why you see a lot of run on the masks. Zrinka, you want to give any input here? What do you think on all this?
Well, we don't have a lot of information on this particular virus because it's simply new. So a lot of scientists right now are currently trying to determine the virulency. They're trying to determine, they determine the genetic origin, but they're trying to also determine which particular parts of the virus would be the best target to use in potential vaccine development. But we don't know much. This is the problem. It's new, it's very, very scary, and we don't have enough information. The only thing that we can do, we can compare it to previous viruses, same coronaviruses, but yeah, this is the only thing how we can actually get some knowledge, comparison, and going day by day and see what happens.
For sure. I think that they've done some research into, I think the last coronavirus that kind of ran rampant was SARS. I could be wrong about that. Is that, Zrinka, do you recall anything about that?
Yeah, it was SARS, and then it was MERS.
Yeah.
Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. But both of them emerged, and they didn't cause this much commotion as this one caused, because both of them kind of disappeared very quickly. SARS in 2002 with reported around 900 deaths, and MERS with reported 1,400, I think, deaths, and that's pretty much it. It didn't kill 500,000 people as it is now.
Yeah, MERS 2 was, and same with SARS to a certain extent. They were better geographically isolated too, whereas this went from, thanks to pretty frequent air travel now and the longer incubation period, which we can get into, that people weren't saying they were sick or showing any symptoms for, say, I think it was 7 to 14 days around
14 days, yeah.
Yeah. And so if any of our listeners don't necessarily understand an incubation period, let me just break it down. So that's the I like to think about it like a piece of bread. If you drop a piece of bread on the ground, everybody likes to think of that 5-second rule. Well, if you give it 5 seconds on the ground, it's gonna pick up some nasty things. And then imagine the incubation period is how long from the time that you drop that piece of bread on the ground to how long did it start growing mold and whatever that's on top of it. So more technically, the incubation period inside your body would be is that as the virus is taking over healthy cells and then reprogramming them to make more copies of itself, how long will you not have symptoms that are associated with a viral infection? So that's my take on it.
Well, also symptoms are connected with the disease onset. That means that we do not develop doesn't necessarily have to mean that we are not contagious, that we are not sick, even if we are not showing the symptoms. We can have, for example, virus inside, and our immune system is able to kind of keep it under control, and then all of a sudden it just cannot, it loses the control, and kind of the virus just spreads, and this is where the symptoms occur. Let's call it like this, simplified. So this is the thing. We can have this period of time in which our immune system is able to fight off to a certain extent while the virus is replicating. And then when it replicates in enough amount, in amount enough for our immune system to, sorry.
Are you okay?
Yeah, it's my allergy.
Yeah.
Everybody's
got
Yeah. No, I'm allergic. I'm allergic a little bit to spring and to something I have to get it checked. So yeah. I was at our immune system is trying to fight off, and this is the incubation period, which we are kind of it can keep the virus under control. And then when the virus starts to abnormally replicate, it overwhelms our immune system, and it kind of it fights back, and this is where the symptoms occur.
So what would be some mechanisms that the immune system would fight back against the virus for, like something like this?
Specifically for this kind of virus, we have two stages. We have a first stage is called innate immune system, and the second one is adaptive immune system, which occurs within 5 to 6 days after. So initial is innate immune system, which means that when the virus infects the cell and starts to replicate, it is presented. Parts of these viruses are recognized by specific cells called antigen-presenting cells, which present the cells. They present the viral particles to T cells, which start to proliferate and start. Oh, sorry, I got a little bit confused. I went straight into adaptive immune system. So let's go from the beginning. When they present, when the cells detect the virus, they start the cascade, and they actually get into. They release several cytokines and chemokines, small signaling molecules that are proteins that act as mediators. So the first line is generally the antibodies. They're trying to neutralize the virus, and the cells of the innate immune system called macrophages, they're trying to phagocyte, they're trying to eat the virus. These cells, specifically macrophages in this case, as well as dendritic cells, present the antigen to lymphocytes, and all of this occurs within 1 to 2 days maximum, and they present it to T cells, which then start to proliferate. They start to produce specific cells that are targeted against this virus, and they again release the cytokines, release cytokines and actually amplify the number. But to fight this, to get to this point, we need about 5 to 6 days. There are several types of immunomodulatory molecules called interferons, which are fighting the virus, which are actually promoting the ability of macrophages to phagocyte. This is the innate immune system part. So interferons in this case promote macrophages. They eat more of a virus. They present more to T lymphocytes, and then they actually amplify the whole cascade. Then we have T cells, which are fighters. Let's call it that way.
I like it that way.
Yeah, they are fighters, but they can be memory T cells, which actually memorize. They create specified fighters, and they create cells that actually memorize. They memorize the virus. They memorize to whom they have to fight against, and they also create specific cytotoxic cells, which are invading and killing the cells invaded by the virus. So this is a kind of like a really complex mechanism that I'm really trying to simplify it. I hope you guys understand, because I can go into I can go into really. It's really hard for me to find a simple way to how to explain it. I'm trying to explain it like I'm explaining it to my grandmother.
You're better off doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is how it goes. So then we also have these specified T cells that are also trying to kill viruses, but they also promote B cells that are producing specialized antibodies, also targeting this special virus. So it takes, let's say, from 6 weeks to 6 days. 6 days to 2 weeks, up to 2 weeks to actually have antibodies.
So it's something that actually needs to go.
Yeah,
it needs time. Yeah.
And it needs time. I mean, it takes. So if the immune system is let's say, strong enough, we are able to fight it off in a certain extent. We are able to keep it, our immune systems are able to keep it under control for a certain amount of time. But also viruses are tricky because they also have the ways how to invade the immune system, how to fight back, to actually us fighting them. So this one in particular has the ability, I mentioned interference before, they have the ability how to block them. So they have specified proteins that actually act as an antagonist. So they're kind of like literally blocking the production of cytokines that are able to promote the immune system against them. So this is why our immune system is not able to fight it off always.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty wild stuff. That's
hot.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
All right. I have a couple of follow-up questions for you based off of that. So it seems like there may be some people with some genetic predispositions. They've related some things to blood type for people that cannot effectively fight off the virus, and there are also people that are immunocompromised. That's sort of one thing that I want to dive into. But to go right from the previous mechanism that you were elucidating, I'm wondering if you might be able to explain, one, if after the body fights off the virus, can people get reinfected in this case? And two, if we were to, how far are we away from potentially developing a vaccine for something like this? And explain the mechanism of how a vaccine would work for any particular virus. Doesn't have to be this one. Let's assume they're all the same.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. There have been people who actually got reinfected. This is unfortunately possible because even though when we go through infection and we actually develop antibodies because they stay, this is what is the purpose of memory cells, both memory T cells, memory B cells, specific antibodies, they can, but it means that if they get reinfected, the disease onset and the disease progress should be milder, but this can be probably due to not efficient immune response. We didn't have, the human, the person who got infected and got reinfected probably didn't have enough antibodies, enough memory cells to fight it back completely. This unfortunately can happen. But in this case, from what we know, immunologists, it should be a little bit less severe. Then the vaccine development, when it comes to the vaccine development, we are unfortunately very far away. We are trying to do it as soon as possible. The best approach right now would be, and I've read it yesterday, they're trying to use the plasma blood from people who actually had infection, who survived it, who are fine now, and they're using their antibodies, they're present in their blood. They're using it as let's call it an antidote. This is how they're going to actually develop a vaccine that is not prophylactic, but it's therapeutical, which could work in this case. And this would be, at this moment, from my opinion, the best approach. When it comes to prophylactic vaccine, the one that protects and actually initiates the immune system, and initiates the response and actually the protective immunity, it works pretty much the same for every vaccine. For every virus, we can have several types. It can be live attenuated, it can be inactivated, subunit, or recombinant polysaccharide, some kind of particle, and it can be toxid. So to actually find the proper vaccine for this virus, we're very far away. We need to know which part, whether to use the entire virus to attenuate it. It means to keep it alive, but to kind of lower its ability to infect the host. Inactivate, that means killed virus, either to use a killed virus or not, or use some kind of part, like for example a capsid or a part of the envelope or the part of the literally a piece of virus, or use a toxin like the toxin in case of, for example, tetanus when they're using, or diphtheria. These are mostly for bacterial vaccinations. But, we have to really figure out what to use. Then we have to go through several clinical trials, preclinical, clinical trials, determine the safety, which takes a lot of time, a lot of subjects. Clinical trials take roughly 10 years to actually determine the safety, the efficacy. So we are unfortunately very far away from actually having a proper vaccine. It can be done in a speedy process. Some estimations are that we can have it within, I think, 2 years, but I wouldn't be so optimistic. But the mechanism of the vaccine, as you mentioned it's pretty much the same for every vaccine. It goes literally like this. We vaccinate a person. We amplify the immune system by activating first innate immune system, which recognizes the pathogen, and then activates the whole cascade that I actually meant before. In the vaccine, we are relying to antigen-presenting cells, specifically dendritic cells, which present the antigen. They are literally giving a portion of a pathogen to T cell, saying, look what I found, and I have this, and you have to fight against it. So they're developing the whole cascade. So briefly, just kind of summarize it, T cells actually activate, they recognize the antigen, they start to proliferate, but they start to proliferate in a specific manner. They're actually coding themselves to recognize and to fight the pathogen next time it occurs in the body. Also, what they do is that they activate B cells, specific B cells, that are producing antibodies which are able to neutralize the pathogen as well. So that means that they are actually producing specialized antibodies that are going to circulate in our blood for a very long time, in certain cases for the rest of our lives. So this is how every vaccine basically works.
We want people to get vaccinated for the flu and these other things.
We want people to get vaccinated against everything. Literally. We want people to get vaccinated. We want people to get vaccinated because it's also something, it's not just about protection of individual, it's the protection of everyone. We also have herd immunity, which means that in the case of, I think the best example for that right now would be measles, because it's reoccurring, unfortunately, due to, I'm not going to vaccinate my child. We are having herd immunity. That means that 90% of population is vaccinated. The virus is still there, but our bodies are detecting it and they're fighting it, because when you have specialized warriors inside your body, they're able to reproduce in a very quick manner. They're able to reproduce literally within 6 days, and they are able to fight back much more efficiently. So this is why we don't have the symptoms. This is why we don't actually get sick when we are vaccinated. And people who are not able to be vaccinated are protected because we are not getting sick and we cannot transmit that disease to them. So this is the whole point of the vaccine.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Very complicated.
It is extremely complicated. The whole mechanism, it takes, I've been trying to kind of simplify it and put it within 2 or 3 sentences, but that's the whole mechanism of how vaccine works is basically my entire PhD, so it's
didn't take very long, so it's, whatever, it's good. I think that for people with a basic understanding of biology, you're really knocked out of the park. I mean,
definitely, absolutely.
I remember my microbiology class, when we got to the immunology things, the guy just threw up his hands and said, I'm going to teach you what I can, but in 10 years this is going to be all out of date. And Zrinka just confirmed that, because there's some buzzwords I knew, but I was like, I didn't know we knew that. So anyway,
vaccinology is a field that is changing constantly. So developing the vaccine is not an easy thing. It's not like, I'm going to design a dress and I'm going to have it within 6 weeks. No, it it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time, a lot of knowledge, a lot of very skilled people, a lot of money, unfortunately. So yeah, it is a process. So we'll see how this is going to develop with this specific virus. I hope, because this one proved to be a little bit more dangerous than the rest of the family. But I hope we will have the vaccine soon. And honestly, I believe this is the lesson learned for people, because some of my anti-vax friends are trying to get their portion of the vaccines as soon as possible. So I think this is, at some point, if we take it on another side, something bad for something good. So I think this would be the good part out of it.
Yeah, that's a pretty weighty thing. I mean, there's also like Zrinka and I live in the Czech Republic, and Justin's living in the U.S. Obviously, I'm from the U.S. But when we compare the healthcare systems out of the like, I'm just gonna 40 member states of the EU. I know that number's wrong, but just for comparison state. Versus,
honestly, I have no idea how many states in EU are.
but when we compare that to the state by state medical procedures within the U.S., not medical procedures, medical practices, I don't know what the right word is, and how each state has been doing its own either shelter in place, or when you have the wonderful people, say, from Mississippi and Alabama, who are overriding local governors and say, hey, this isn't a big deal, it's just a cough, go and do wherever the hell you want. I think hopefully we've sort of elucidated some of the I don't know, the processes under which the virus can and will continue replicating, but also that this is a grave situation. I think I could speak that scientists don't really give, like, oh, this is going to be the end of the world, but we can say, hey, you're putting yourself at undue risk if you're going out and like licking light poles and sneezing on people. So
yeah.
Well, honestly, if they're licking poles, I would say, well, in their case, if they get sick and they die, it's, well, evolution. It's not the survival of the fittest, but survival of the smartest in this case. But unfortunately, they will transmit it to somebody else. This is the problem. People don't realize that they can be asymptomatic. They can be transmitters. They don't have to even have a disease progress as severe. They may just walk it off literally. But they will infect somebody else. They will infect somebody who is immunocompromised. They will infect somebody who is sick with something else, and this person is going to die. So we have to think about this. It's not about us, it's about the community.
I like it. I think that I want to clarify something for our listeners as well. If you're going through some of the primary literature on the virus, or if you're reading the CDC reports or the World Health Organization reports like a maniac like I am, you'll often see that a lot of the people who end up perishing from the disease have these pre-existing conditions or are immunocompromised. So I just wanted to discuss what some of those are, what some of those I've seen are listed in the reports I've read. So some of the reports list not obesity outright, but a lot of comorbid factors that lead to obesity. So type 2 diabetes, this liver disease, they didn't list cirrhosis, but this fatty liver disease, and of course I'm blanking, I can't remember right now. Jess, did you run into anything that said other, like, what other risk factors for this would be? Like, what would be identified as an at-risk population besides,
Definitely the elderly, for sure. So there's an age demographic that's obviously targeted, which are immunocompromised. There are people that have autoimmune disorders. People also that have had transplants in the past, so heart transplant. People that have had major surgeries like open heart surgery, or maybe to have a pacemaker, for example. And then as it pertains to nutrition and what we try to dive into specifically on the podcast, fitness and nutrition and staying healthy, it seems that people that have developed, as Jordan already sort of mentioned, people that have gotten to a point in their life where they're overweight, and they've developed underlying human diseases such as heart disease and type 2 diabetes. They're also at an increased risk because they are also immunocompromised in a sense, because their body, at least the way that I think about it simplistically, is that their body spends a lot of time and effort just trying to stay healthy from being overweight, or having, organs that need extra attention. So they don't, the body only has so much time to fight off something exogenous, such as a virus or, anything else. So that's simplistically the way that I think about it. I don't know if Zrinka has another perspective that gets at sort of a deeper rooted mechanism of this.
You're actually right. I mean, technically, when it comes to specifically to obese people and people with specifically with type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes also as an autoimmune disease. Technically, type 2 diabetes has been debated also as a autoimmune disease. For the past 5 or 6 years, they are actually taking it under the wing of autoimmune diseases as well. In their case, technically, they are actually having, for example, internal swellings, just like people with the diabetes type 2 specifically. They can have increased inflammation, internal swelling, which can be caused by above target blood sugars. And so when you have one ongoing inflammation, as you said, in your body, and then you actually get to another one, the body just cannot handle it. So something is going to prevail, something is going to literally kill the person. And the same thing goes with heart disease, with people who have transplants. These people specifically, they have to take immunosuppressant drugs, which means that they already have their immune system suppressed by another agent, so they cannot fight back because their immune system is literally suppressed. It's tamed down to keep the organ in place that is not theirs. So these people cannot fight a virus like this. They cannot fight most of the diseases in a proper way. Then we have people who are immunodeficient, people who have different deficiencies that can be caused by, for example, HIV virus. This is common immunodeficiency. But we also have deficiencies that are chronic, that are coming like chronic ones. That are coming, people are literally born with them. One part of the immune system is not working properly, and they cannot fight the virus back. They don't have a chance, simply because they have one part of their body not functioning properly. It's the same thing like not having, let's say, a functional spleen, functional liver, and you're trying to drink excessively, but you don't have a functional liver, you're going to die. It is the same thing. You don't have a functional immune system for some reason, and you contract a virus like this, you're going to die.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that maybe not appearing in the literature so far, but I've been talking to my clinician friend. She's a doctor, and she has a doctorate in nursing back home in the States, and we've had discussions about, say you end up in the hospital, you're fairly young and there's no problem. It's not so much the virus that causes the problem at that point, is that you're in a hospital and you can catch all sorts of pneumonia or another antibiotic resistant strain of bacteria, just because your lungs, they've had sort of anecdotal reports that this virus causes your, obviously the ventilator discussion, so you have to constantly be under the pressure of having the air, literally the air pressure forced into your lungs. But the other side of that is this accumulation of fluid, and that is just a bacterial breeding ground at that point. So
yes, this is the problem with hospitals. Yes, people contract a lot of different things there. They're not supposed to contract. This is a normal thing. This is to be expected in hospital, unfortunately. So this is why young people can also die from this, because they're not dying from the virus itself. They will die from something that was caused, something opportunistic. So technically everybody is at risk if we look at that way. But mostly people who are immunocompromised with autoimmune diseases, because they have ongoing inflammation already in their body. Every autoimmune disease is basically an inflammation. The body is fighting itself, unfortunately. So they are also taking different drugs that are taming the immune system down. But if they contract this virus, or for example flu as well, it can be a lot more. It is actually much more dangerous than for, let's say, you and me who are healthy. But still, everybody is at risk.
Yeah, I think that's as the diagnosis of this virus is changing, right when it started in China, as it made its way. It's currently ongoing. Zrinka and I are still under official full quarantine in the Czech Republic. But as it's making its way into the U.S., which is just, it's a very complicated situation with the health practices and also what is considered healthy versus the rest of the world. It's a complicated thing, and I just hope that everything starts to kind of roll the right way. So we're pretty close to being sort of our time limit, so we don't put our listeners to sleep. Did anybody want to sort of chime in? Any last thoughts? Or
No, I think, Zrinka, you knocked it out the park.
Yep.
This was exactly what I think our listeners needed to hear, and we went over so much regarding what the virus is, the mechanism of the virus, what people are at a higher risk, and how people are at low risk can protect people of higher risk. And we definitely, I think, gave a message to the anti-vaxxers out there, and I think now they're starting to realize the severity of this as it pertains to people that unfortunately don't have the immune system, as you elucidated, to fight this on their own. So honestly, thank you so much. It was I definitely learned a lot, I'll tell you that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
I tried. You're welcome. I tried to keep it simplified, and this is where I get kind of like confused, because I'm used to saying, when I say to people like, CD4 plus cells and CD8 plus cells, and they're all cooperating, they actually understand what I'm talking about.
May as well be Croatian at that point for as well as
Yeah, exactly. This is why I try to keep it as simple as possible, and this is what, what's simple for me, it's not simple for everybody else. So yeah, I have to remember that.
All right, Jess, you want to take us out, or you want me to do the closing credits on this one?
Yeah, man, I think we're good. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcast app, and check out the link in the show notes for discounts off of several products from our sponsors. So thank you guys so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Science.